Why was there a delay in having this money, or is it that the money was not there? Because we had even Ed and Duale coming out to say that if money is what is the problem, then we shall have a special sitting and have the money approved. Why do we need to wait for a special sitting when we know how important 2017 is and the elections and the importance of IEBC in this whole process?
Well, the problem with IEBC is the fact that it had some audit queries. According to parliamentary tradition and procedures, wherever a government institution has some audit queries, you should not rush to add more money to that institution before that audit query is lifted. So they took long, and I think to the best of my knowledge, they have not yet handled that matter of the query properly. It is still
when we talk about an audit query, is there a specific query? Because we know there are several things that they may have faced, but is there a specific one that maybe we're talking about that would hinder that to be processed?
Yes, this is what happens. The budget making process is usually an annual thing. So therefore, when IEBC comes up with a certain budget, it makes a presentation to the Legal and Justice Committee, which I happen to be a member. When they come there, before we decide whether we are going to give them this kind of money, the first question we usually ask is, do you have an audit query? So they come and explain to us, but our committee does not deal with queries. The committee that deals with query is PAC, that is Parliamentary Accounts Committee. So therefore, before we decide to add them more money, it is usually important for that institution to deal with the issue of the usage of money and that query, whether it has been settled or not. So, since the last election, there have been some queries. One, there was the issue of procurement, and there was the issue of lack of documentation in some of the expenditure that they did in the year 2013 elections. Up to now, those issues are yet to be settled. As a result, we parliamentarians were somewhat reluctant to add them more money until that matter has been resolved. Maybe she can answer to us whether those audit queries have been resolved properly.
Okay.
Number two, Kenyans should know this exercise, ideally, by the way, it is being scaled up. It is not commencing per se. After an election happens, they are supposed to do what we call continuous registration of voters. In fact, if you go to the offices, their officers are supposed to be registering people on a continuous basis. So the issue of scaling up is usually a strategic issue as they approach an election. Otherwise, a Kenyan is supposed to go there and register. But when they come up with a budget and they give to us, they must also come up with itemization. We are going to do this, we are going to do this. And to the best of my knowledge, this is an area IEBC has not been very good in terms of justification of usage of money. No wonder we were proposing we make that commission part-time. Because I think there have been a lot of commissioners who are not doing anything, just there, and they're not, when we tell them to give us a good justification how they're using their money, it's not clear to us. So I think Madam can answer to us how far they have gone towards addressing the issue of queries, so that now we can at least get a good reason for us to add them more money.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I think we are mixing issues here. There's one, the issue of voter registration. It's a constitutional process. It's provided. In fact, I want to challenge Mheshimiwa here. And I'm happy that he has mentioned we've been having continuous voter registration. How much have you utilized that function? Because after the 2013 general election, we had constituency-based voter registration. I mean, according to the annual ceiling that we are provided by the National Treasury. Right. But you see, then, you would actually find very paltry numbers turning up. There wasn't much sensitization even from the end of the political leaderships or even people within the constituencies. Now, what the Commission has done is basically to be proactive and say, look, we are having 8 million voters who are unregistered out there, either those who before 2013 had not turned 18 or those for one or the other reason did not register during the 2013 general election. So can we basically tap on those and have them on the principal register of voters? So I want to call upon the leadership, basically the political leadership, to capitalize on every other infrastructure that we have as a commission when we're discussing matters voter registration. That is on the one hand. So that now we don't say that because of mass voter registration, this is almost like a new issue. No, we've had continuous voter registration, as it rightly said.
So this is more like a campaign.
It's an upscale.
An upscale and creating awareness.
Yeah, it has been there, but very low scale. But right now we are saying, hey, We are now approaching 2017. Can we have more activity towards voter registration? And therefore, towards this initiative, I must say, there wasn't very good support from Parliament. And I'm happy Mheshimiwa is here. When we presented our budget, basically, it got zero allocation. Shamefully, zero allocation. And therefore, before we throw stones at the National Treasury, first from Parliament level, why did they not allocate sufficient funding for this process? Because now he wants to marry this with audit queries. Those are not related, absolutely, I must say here. Audit queries, on the one hand, are basically a preserve of the Public Accounts Committee, where then we're supposed to appear and respond to the queries. That's separate and apart from the issue of allocating funds for a constitutional process like voter registration. And I must thank the same committee through the chairperson, Chepkonga, where they basically, towards the last minute, said, no, we cannot allocate zero towards this particular vote. Let's at least give it 500 million. And that is what we are now operating with as a commission, thankfully, to the same committee.
Okay. Yeah. Now, Mheshimiwa, it's been put over to you that legislature has not been supportive of IEBC. What are your comments to that?
No, the reason I told my colleague here that we as parliamentarians, we do have a duty of protecting funds of the public. So there's no way we cannot fail to marry those two issues. We do always marry the issue of queries and the issue of requests for funds, because it does not make sense for us to keep on pumping money into an institution that is unable to account for the money that was given in the previous years. So therefore, she's saying we can't marry, but we always marry. So that also you as an institution, you also become a prudent entity. That's number one. Number two, of course, you must also give us what we call a budget that is very clearly outlining the issue that you intend to do. You say, I want to do this on this and this date. When you fail to do so, we as parliamentarians, we always somehow reluctant to give you money. But now, we have done our level best, we give them some money, but I would urge IEBC to up its game. It ensures, number one, those queries, they are no longer in their books of accounts. That's number one. Number two, they ensure if any person has misappropriated any funds, action has been taken.
And would that be the job of the IEBC, or are there organs, government organs, that would take care of somebody who has maybe misappropriated funds?
I want to add ways to that.
According to auditing process, and she knows, when a query occurs in your books of accounts, the first obligation is upon you to respond to that query.
Okay.
Which we do respond.
When you fail to do so, the assumption is you must take responsibility.
Okay.
Which we do respond. And I think we all know, it's public knowledge to everyone in this country that following the 2013 general election, there were audit queries, there were investigations, there were massive audits from EACC, from civil society organizations, name it, were basically clamped with audits after the general election. But just to answer what he has raised, Mheshimiwa here, is we know the audit queries that are basically the big subject of discussion here have been taken to a notch higher by EACC. They are subjects of prosecution. So the more we rotate around those discussions, basically, and then cripple a very important function like voter registration, and I'm happy, from the way I'm hearing Mheshimiwa, it's actually like they're regretting that honestly they should have allocated more funds, and now Mheshimiwa would have been having kids at every polling station in Keharu registering people, as opposed to now wondering when will this kid move from this point to the next point. I'm happy that actually Parliament is realizing that allocation of funds to critical functions like voter registration is a key priority. And marrying it to issues like an audit query which is already being addressed in itself really makes us walk around a treadmill.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, Mheshimiwa, the voter registration exercise, the mass voter registration exercise beginning on Monday is purely an upscale, like she says, but it has been going on. Is it that the political class was not aware of this? Because even when we hear what the opposition has to say regarding the kits not being enough, it is not something that is starting now. It is literally just an upscale and a reminder. We are heading to 2017, so let's do this in mass. Is it that there was not information or what?
Well, to the best of my knowledge, that information is there. In fact, I think voter registration happens to be the only thing that IBC does wherever we don't have an election. So therefore, I would somehow blame politicians when it comes to the issue of mobilization. And I would imagine those people who are complaining on that issue happen to be the people in the opposition. And I think they are not being sincere because this thing has been happening in each and every county. We do have county headquarters. The offices tend to be there. They are located in there. So therefore, when a person says that he did not know there was this exercise that was happening, that person is not being sincere.
All right. Well, this is Morning Express, and it's time for State of the Nation. Today we are looking at the mass voter registration exercise that began on Monday. It goes on for a month, but it still continues even after that. So far, we had established that the voter registration exercise, according to Betty, is going on well as planned. And of course, there was the issue that had been raised, and I'll bring you in, Noah, on this.
Yes.
The opposition had raised concern with the number of BVR kits, but we do know Isaac Hassan came out to say that now they have been increased, they've been doubled. Is the opposition now satisfied with what is happening so far?
No, we are far from satisfied. At the beginning of this process, when the IEBC invited political parties to the Great Rift Valley Lodge in Naivasha, they made it known to us that they had plans to dispatch about 2,900 plus or minus 100 BVR kits. This is despite them being in possession of over 16,000 BVR kits in total. 1,600 procured during the August 2010 referendum and 15,000 procured in December of 2012 for the general election. We raised serious concerns with the IEBC that the potential voter registration to be captured was in excess of 8 million people who had IDs but were not registered to vote. And 2,900 BVR kits, registering 150 people each per day, falls far short of the expectations of Kenyans. Following the intervention of the international community, and that gave the IEBC an additional 576 million shillings, that's when this was doubled. However, at present, we still have ranging between 2 and 4 kits per ward. There are some wards that have 15 to 20 polling stations. We urged the IEBC to do registration of persons at polling station level to ensure Kenyans are not disenfranchised. We went to the IEBC offices the day before yesterday in Anniversary Towers. After writing to them 4 times, by the way, 4 times we were ignored, forcing us to go and walk in because it is a public office and we have the right to do so, to get information and to encourage them to fulfill their constitutional mandate. And in our discussions with them, they told us that the sole criteria that they used for the allocation of BVR kits was land surface area. They did not factor in population that needed to be registered. So we were asking ourselves, and Kenyans are asking themselves, is the IEBC registering square kilometers or is the IEBC registering people? Let me give you a practical example. You look at a county like Kilifi. It has upwards of 600,000 Kenyans who have IDs but did not register to vote. This was as a result of the MRC conflict in 2012-2013. In Kiambu, there are only approximately 350,000. Yet Kilifi has 40 less BVR kits than Kiambu. Only 142 kits to register 600,000 people, while Kiambu has 182 to register 300,000 people. So we're asking ourselves, is this criteria of land surface area really the way we should go? And even if that was the criteria that was applied, Kilifi is 5 times larger than Kiambu. So on all aspects, nobody understands the rationale that's being used by the IEBC.
Okay. I'll come to Betty on 2 things, but I want to establish one thing first. You mentioned that when you wrote to the IEBC, you were ignored. When you say ignored, what do you mean? Is it that they did not respond? They did not give you audience?
We started writing to the IEBC immediately after our engagement in Naivasha, where they launched their, where they took us through their elections operations plan 2015-2017. We wrote to them the first week thereafter in a letter signed by our Coalition Management Committee co-chairs, that's Senator Mudama and Senator Orengo. The week after that, we repeated the same. The week after that, the same.
So
and
is
the
it
week
that they did not respond?
We did not. We received one letter in response telling us that the commissioners are out of the country and they're looking for an opportune time to engage.
So what?
And we laid out the issues that we wanted to address. They waited until the mass voter registration exercise began, when the crisis is at the doorstep, and that's when they want to address issues. And this is similar also in the manner in which they're talking about election funding.